Hi, I'm Nina Melendez, and welcome to LinkedIn News Live, a show about the world of work and our place in it. 2 months ago, we had a show about digital surveillance. The topic worried many members, the idea that our phones and computers are not just taking note of our everyday lives, but also monitoring what we do, what we search, and how we live, all to sell to advertisers. After the show, I got a note from a member who said it's not all nefarious. There's actually an upside to targeting marketing. It is, for example, the reason why men don't get ads for tampons or cat owners don't get ads for dog food. So today we're going to explore that. Joining me now is Ed Silhan. He is a managing director and chief revenue officer at Locala, a digital marketing company that drives consumers to stores. Before joining Locala, he was the executive vice president at Cito Mobile and the head of advertising solutions for eBay's audience platform. Ed has a bachelor's degree from Fairfield University. Ed, welcome.
Thank you. It's very nice to be here, Nina.
It's great to have you.
Yes.
First, tell me a little bit about what Locala does.
Sure. Locala is a global drive-to-store platform founded in Paris, France, but now headquartered in New York. We serve digital advertising with the intent to drive increased foot traffic to local businesses to help drive commerce.
And what kind of data do you collect, and how specific is it? Is it like 18-year-old Latina who likes parrots, that specific, or is it a little bit more broad?
Oh,
female
no.
in Bay Area.
What we collect is anonymous device IDs, understanding the location of those devices, and we use that in order to serve relevant advertising, connect consumers to their local businesses that brings value to them, and also to connect local businesses and brands to their best customers. New customers help increase their commerce, and it helps drive the economy.
And devices, we're talking about phones,
iPads,
tablets.
Yes, anything that has GPS on that device, we could see where that location is, and then understand how long it would take for that consumer to get to a specific location. So we'll serve an ad for a local business that we're working with to try and drive them to that physical store.
There's data that's collected by apps versus open web. Can you explain the difference to us?
Sure. Data that's collected by apps are anonymous device IDs. So devices are assigned a number. The user has to actually consent. So that's a very important word, and opt in for that location and for that device ID to be tracked by that location. When it comes to cookies, we're in a completely cookieless environment. So cookies are digital breadcrumbs. It's where consumers go, what type of content are they ingesting. It's not their physical footprint, it is what they're doing on the web. So what types of products are they looking at? What types of websites are they looking at? And they leave a trail. And then companies can track that and understand the type of content that those consumers are looking at. And that's not what we do when it comes to location and devices.
So you are specifically more location targeted?
All location, 100% location targeted.
And then when you say it's consensual, it is like, so for example, if a pop-up comes up on my phone and it says so-and-so wants to track where you're going, allow only while using the app, like that pop-up, that's the data that you
And they have to opt in to be tracked. If they don't opt in, we receive signals. And if we don't see that opt-in, that consent signal, then we delete it and we don't use that device.
How many people opt in? I always imagine that nobody opts in.
So Apple actually changed their policies early last year, and asked every single consumer if they were okay with these publishers tracking their devices. Those publishers had to write that into their code. At first, we saw a little bit of a drop off in the number of consumers that did actually opt in, but then that increased again. So it went down, then it increased, and I think it's really because of the relevancy of the ads that they were seeing, and they do prefer to get that value and see ads that are relevant to them.
I want to say hi to some members who are joining us. We have folks joining from, all over the world. We have Paula from Mexico City, Pina from California, Nedim from Zurich, Ashish from Mumbai, Osara from Alberta, and Christine from New York City. So thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions for Ed, put them in the stream and we'll get those answered for you. So Ed, can we talk about PII and what it is, and can companies just collect this willy-nilly.
Absolutely not. PII is personal information towards that consumer.
Mhm.
Any information that the consumer chooses to share, they have to opt in for that. So what we deal with is anonymous device IDs that has zero PII other than that GPS location to it. We don't know the name of the consumer. We don't know what types of hobbies they're in. We don't have any of that personal
All you know
information.
is that they were at, say, the Starbucks on this location
At the X
at
time
X time.
during this time of the year, yes.
And then do you do some sort of analysis of that data then, like, oh, this
Mhm.
person must live in the, in Brooklyn or in this sort of area, and then you target based on
Yeah,
things that are happening in
so
that area?
with this type of information, we can understand if a consumer is commuting into, say, Midtown Manhattan, and we're also seeing that device in certain areas in the suburbs, maybe in the evening. So we know that they live in the suburbs, they commute into the city. So knowing that they are going to be in the city uh, 5 days a week, if they are in the city 5 days a week now, we could serve them with an ad from, say, a Starbucks uh, the night before, telling them about a special breakfast promotion that they're having the next day.
So you mentioned that you were Paris-based. What's the
Mhm.
difference between, the regulations here in the United States versus in Paris, and or in France, Europe? And does
Mhm.
Locala follow the rules here in the US, or are you guys beholden to the rules in Europe?
That's a great question. So a couple of
Thanks.
years ago, the EU enacted the General Data Protection Regulation (GDPR), and what that is, it's actually a law based that came out of France decades ago, protecting their citizens' privacy. So being in France, being founded in France, we built our entire platform based on this regulation. Privacy was our first focus. So many companies, when this happened in the EU, especially American companies,
Mm.
had to pull out of the EU because they didn't build their platforms with privacy as the main focus.
And actually, there is a big exodus of American companies pulling out of the EU. Is that the main reason why?
It is 100% because of those privacy regulations. And now what we're seeing in the US is following Europe and enacting very similar legislation. We have CCPA, which is the California Consumer Protection Act,
Mhm.
which is very similar to GDPR. As it went through the process of being vetted out and going to legislation, started exactly where GDPR was, ended around where GDPR is. GDPR is actually a little more strict, and
Hmm.
our system is built on GDPR,
Mm.
and we utilize that across the world. So even in the US, in Asia, everywhere. So we have an advantage.
I was about to say you're
Being
kind of ahead of the game
Yes,
because everyone will have to be playing catch up
yep,
by the time all these rules get enacted
yes, that's correct.
worldwide.
And now there's a federal law called American Data Privacy Protection Act that's in legislation now, and we see that going through the same process, similar to CCPA and GDPR. And we kind of believe that where it will end up will be somewhere around GDPR. So again, we're already ahead of the game.
What does it mean when a company violates the privacy?
It's hefty, hefty fines. If they violate the privacy, it's something that could put a company out of business. So this is why many companies left Europe, because they weren't set up for that and they don't want to deal with those fines.
And when you talk about hefty fines, like, is it like
No, it could
ballpark?
add up to the hundreds of millions of dollars
I want
because
mhm.
it's you're fined based on every infraction, every violation.
Every
Mhm.
violation. Wow. Um,
And think about how many devices there are out there.
yeah. Let's say hi again to some members. Carol in the UK, Firas from Iraq, Dolores from Dallas, Prosper from Uganda, and Nicoletta from Rome. Thank you for joining. Stacy asks, so we have a question from our member, Stacy. Who regulates, quote, opt-out features, and if they are actually not still tracking?
The individual publishers have to enact, they have to build it into their software and have a consumer actually consent and opt in.
Hmm.
If the consumer decides they don't no longer want that to be tracked, they go back into that publisher's software and they could easily opt out.
And when there is a violation of that, say the company doesn't continues to monitor or whatever it is, who who discovers that?
So we have what we call our consent verification. So
Okay.
whenever we're getting a signal of an ad call of a consumer in a specific location, if we don't see that consent right in that ad call, then we delete everything that we saw and we don't proceed with that device.
But meaning it's self-regulated
It's regulated. We regulate it internally,
internally.
and that's how we go about it.
And is there like some sort of federal organization that comes in and makes sure that that you are correctly regulating internally, or
I think that's really on the entire industry. So it's including Apple, Google, the publishers, the vendors that are doing it. And if there is an audit by any government agency, then that will be found out.
That's the word, audit. Okay. Angela says, I appreciate the opt-in option from Apple. And Ashwin says the opt-in is not plain language speak for most apps. What do you think about that?
Well, everything that I've seen personally, and when I look at myself as a consumer, when I download a different app, it says this app would like to track your location, and do you opt into this? And typically I do, because I do see the value in getting relevant advertising.
So you do, so you actually do
Yes,
opt in.
absolutely.
And when you opt in, there is no danger beyond just giving location data to companies.
Well, I think obviously there are always going to be nefarious players, but I do trust in the system, and I haven't myself had any issues with that location data being used.
I want to bring up a quote from this was a person on in a magazine put this quote in. He says, once a social media platform has you pegged with specific demographics, you'll begin to see more content that supports the opinions you've seen before and aligns with the views you appear to hold. As a result, you can end up surrounded by information that seemingly confirms your beliefs and perpetuates stereotypes, even if it isn't the whole truth. So this person is saying this obviously against this sort of data collection and targeted advertising because perhaps it can lead to groupthink. It can lead to those sorts of mob mentality-ish. What is your response to that?
When it comes to social media, we don't work in the social media space at the moment, and we're focusing on every other types of publishers and apps, and we're focusing on the advertising. When it comes to fake news, when it comes to inciting people, like that's not the business that we are in. And I think maybe someone from one of the social media sites would be best to answer that.
We'll have them on after you, maybe. Tell me, what is the next frontier of marketing? Is it more data collecting like this and targeted marketing? Is it something else?
Well, I think that privacy is always going to be a big factor. So when you have the vendors and the players in the game that are concerned with the user's privacy, then they will grow, and it will be done in a beneficial way that both helps the consumer, helps brands, and it will inevitably help the economy. Marketers are very smart nowadays. They demand to see their return on investment. They want to see real business outcomes out of their advertising dollars. They want to see, did this drive more foot traffic? Did this drive more sales in my store or online? So you see a lot more of that and being able to show those analytics and those business outcomes, and that's where digital marketers will succeed.
And Locala is growing.
Yes, it is. We're growing
and you're expanding
exponentially.
Across countries. So there is a way then to do this, following the rules and protecting people's privacy, and continue to
absolutely
to be profitable.
If you are privacy first, if you look at the consumer first, and then work with your brands to connect with those consumers, you'll grow.
I want to switch gears just a little bit because we are here at LinkedIn. Are you hiring?
Absolutely. We're hiring across all divisions, sales, marketing, operations. So if people are interested, please feel free to send over your resumes.
Great. What do you look for in a candidate? What makes a successful person?
Someone smart, thoughtful, someone that is socially conscious, and really wants to see the company grow and succeed.
Great. And unfortunately, we have to leave it there, but I
That's
appreciate you coming
Thank
on
you
and
so much.
speaking with
No,
us and
this
letting
was a
me
lot of
pick your
fun.
brain.
I
Great.
appreciate it.
That was Ed Silhan. He's Chief Revenue Officer at Locala. And thank you for everyone who commented. Sorry we couldn't get to everyone's comments in time, but you can continue the conversation here, or you can check out some of the other stories to the right of your feed. If you're on mobile, just click into the search box. I'm Nina Melendez. Thanks so much for watching LinkedIn News Live.